Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is the approval of the minutes of August 1st, 2016.
David will make a motion to adopt the minutes of 1:16 as listed.
Kirkowski, second.
I think I heard Kirkowski seconds. Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tolman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Under recognition, we have a congratulations to Henry David Olson for receiving the Eagle Scout Award, one of many Eagle Scouts we've seen in Oak Creek in the last few years. So I will read that proclamation. It's Council Proclamation number 1615. Congratulations to Henry David Olson for receiving the Eagle Scout Award. Whereas the conferring of an Eagle Scout is one of the highest awards that can be bestowed upon a Boy Scout, and whereas such award is an earned award and that the recipient must perform and successfully complete and pass the rigid requirements exacted to achieve an Eagle Scout Award, and whereas less than 4% of all Scouts actually achieve this goal, and whereas at a court of honor to be held at Papa Luigi's 2 on August 21st, 2016 at 4 p.m., I think we're all invited to that now, an Eagle Award will be conferred upon Henry David Olson, and whereas as his Eagle project, Henry chose a project which coincided with the 75th anniversary of St. Matthew's Church in Oak Creek, and led the design and construction of a circular brick patio and reflection garden with benches on the church grounds. And whereas Henry's project included the re-roofing and painting of an existing structure, lighting the area with solar lights and laying brick pathways to and from the patio. And whereas the brick patio construction and pathways allowed much needed access to a 1939 30-foot statue of Jesus for all to enjoy and reflect upon while appreciating the peaceful setting. Whereas Henry coordinating the efforts of many volunteers to assist with the construction of the patio and reflection garden, putting in a total of over 470 hours of work. And whereas the Oak Creek Common Council wishes to recognize this noteworthy achievement of Henry Olson, now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and Common Council of the City of Oak Creek hereby extend their congratulations to Eagle Scout Henry David Olson for having an Eagle Scout Award conferred upon him by the Boy Scouts of America. Be it further resolved that this proclamation be spread upon the minutes of this meeting, and the city clerk be, and she is hereby directed to transmit a suitable copy thereof to Henry Olson, dated this day, 16th day of August, 2016. Congratulations to Henry David Olson. Need a motion.
I'll move to approve Council Proclamation 16-15. Congratulations to Henry David Olson for receiving the Eagle Scout Award.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tolman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Under new business, item 5 is a consideration of resolution number 11728-081616. It's a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of, is there a corrected number here?
There is 5.1 million.
5.1 million of general obligation promissory notes, series 2016B. City Administrator?
So the council package shows 6.2 million. We had costs in there for phase 1 that we could not put in that project. So we have a reduction in the amount to 5.1 million. Essentially, that's $4.8 million in roadway and infrastructure construction costs as part of our TID 12. That's where IKEA is. So it's phase 1A and phase 2 of the roadway construction. There's also about $314,000 in capitalized interest. And what that means is the bond issue has those dollars in it to pay the interest only on this temporary financing issue until we go to a permanent financing. Permanent financing is planned for in 2019, and that's based on when we would be getting our increment in that district from the IKEA project. So 2019, we'll start getting cash flow, which is more than enough, actually plenty, to pay the principal and interest. So this is a project that is subject to a development agreement that we have with IKEA. We had some time frames, tight time frames. This needed to be in place by September 1. We're under that time frame. Construction is going well. Permitting is going well on that project. And I can tell you that the financing went well. We had this bond reviewed by Moody's. We've maintained our AA2 rating, and Paul Thompson from Hutchins Shockey and Early can talk a little bit more about that and answer any of the technical questions that the council may have on the issue.
Come on up. Name and address for the record.
Paul Thompson. He said everything. I don't really need to say much more, other than the fact that the interest rate is 2%, which is a pretty good rate. The Moody's report is if you haven't seen it, if you want to read it, it's available. I'm sure Jerry has it or Bridget has it. Very reflective of even the previous financings we've had this year, and Moody's continues to hold the city in pretty high regard. Any questions I can answer for anyone?
Any questions from the council?
Bridget did,
Alderman Gale?
the entire council.
Yeah, the Moody's report is out there. I think it's already on our website as well. We post that. And the council also has the preliminary official statement, which is information that provides significant financial information about the city's finances. So the council has that. It'll come into an official statement after the issuance of the bond. We'll get that in a couple weeks.
Anything else from the council?
Steve?
Alderman Toman?
Paul, can the interest rate fluctuate if interest rates keep going down and before the permanent date?
No, the interest rate is permanent at 2% until 2019. Where it would go down to, I'm not quite sure.
Things are going.
Yeah, I know. It's there are some negative rates out there, but not in the municipal bond market.
Seeing no other questions or comments, motion on 5.
Gail will move to approve resolution 11728-081616, a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of 5.1 million general obligation promissory notes series 2016B.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Under 6 is a presentation, or rather an update on Phase 1 of the Emerald Road development presented by Rick Barrett of Barrett Low Visionary. Welcome.
Thank you.
Name and address for the record.
Rick Barrett, Milwaukee. Brought Paula with me because I suspected you guys might have some questions. She's our leasing manager over at Emerald Row Phase 1.
Paula's full name is? Okay.
So we are here with great news today. So the great news is we came to you many years ago when City Hall had a roof that was leaking. And today, all of those things that we spoke of back then have come true. And the momentum we have over at Emerald Row Phase 1 already is way above what we would have ever expected. The demand is outstanding, and we've been open 2 weeks, and we have 85 leases. I am not sure in the Milwaukee metro area that has ever been done before. So that many leases is very, very powerful statement to the economic environment in Oak Creek and the desire to live here. So I wanted to bring that good news to everybody because I think it's important to note that a lot of people on this council here made a very difficult decision when we supported that project back then. And when I decided to come to Oak Creek, it was a 10, 15-year commitment, and I cannot tell you that I could be any happier with the investment we've made here, and we want to continue to do so. We look forward to building Phase 2, and I have put 7.2 acres to the south here under contract, and I would like to actually ramp up more units in this area because I'd like to make more investment here because we're doing quite well.
One of the points you made on our tour that we took a couple weeks ago is you were surprised that the larger units were
Yep.
leasing quicker. You can talk about that.
Yep, absolutely. The 2s and 3s are going quickly, so it's very good news.
Is there not that I want to stereotype the people that live at Emerald Row, but is there a common denominator amongst the folks that are living here? What are you seeing?
Yep, we're seeing a good mix of young professionals, empty nesters, and young families.
I think the demographics from where we're actually creating demand here, this is something that is a little bit different than actually bringing demand and moving it around Oak Creek. We're actually creating demand, and I think some of the people coming from out of state.
Yeah, we crunched some numbers out of the 85. We've got 20% are from downtown, 20% from out of state, the other 15% Racine County, and then 15% is just local, Hills Corners, Greenfield, and Oak Creek.
That out-of-state thing is interesting. So are those job relocations or?
Job relocation, yeah, and they're looking at Oak Creek as a destination suburb to be in.
What, people always ask me, what's the status of the completion of the remainder of the units?
We have 2 remaining deliveries. We have one wing to the south side of Phase 1 that will be available in November, but we'll have the north wing, which will be available in October. So we're actually ahead of schedule on our construction as well. So we've been able to deliver along in a methodical way, but we're going to be full by the end of this year.
And then the other question they ask is the Valentine coffee piece of your development. Where does that stand? What's that look like?
We had a little holdup with the with some of the wood that was needed, but now we've got that in place, and we are going to continue to push that forward. But I think it's going to be first quarter of 17.
Okay. Questions? Alderman Bekavich.
I guess I was going to ask a question.
I saw you reaching.
Yeah. No, I'm just kind of curious because the amenities we put into Drexel Town Square obviously help attract renters, not only for your place, but others. What about some of the area stuff we're doing? I mean, we're working on the lake. We announced the Kia's coming in. We retained Master Lock's world headquarters here. I mean, how does that affect you, and what does it say for Oak Creek?
I think, obviously you guys know I'm a downtown developer, but I think the what happened here is something that obviously resonated through the Milwaukee metro area. And what was resonating was that Oak Creek has great leadership. It's a place that's pro-business, that's pro-development, and that is a place that is on the rise. And so that message, I think, is what is the strongest message that's overarching through the Milwaukee metro area. So I hear it everywhere I go. I mean, everywhere downtown, all over. And I think that's the message more than anything. Drexel Town Square is an outstanding project. I mean, it's a message to everyone that, like when I started, the old City Hall, I joked with the message about the water dripping through the roof, but I mean, look where we are today compared to where we were then. And again, I'm really proud to be part of that. And I'm proud to be here, as a teammate of yours, as a partner of yours, saying we got good news.
Just one quick one. So when people come to tour, what do they say specifically? Why Oak Creek, or do they?
Yes, yeah, and I absolutely paint a picture of the entire, everything they're getting with the Drexel Town Square, the nature preserves, the new restaurants, and then also I always play in the convenience factor. Grocery stores right here, Target right around the corner, 5 minutes to the airport, to build that whole story, so all of it helps.
It's interesting because my office faces the square, and I see folks, your newest residents, the ones that moved in a couple of weeks ago, walking across this area to get to Meyer and Woodman's or whatever restaurants they're going to. So clearly they've bought into the walkable concept, and I think that's something that's going to stand out on all these properties. Other questions? Alderman Gale.
Rick, and sorry, I forgot your name, but Paul, sorry. Anything you're hearing that you give your sales pitch and you say this and this is going, anything that they say, oh, this is, you don't have this. Is there something people are looking for that we're not looking at?
No, I mean, when I start spouting off everything that's happening, it's like it covers all bases. Especially with it just being a quick drive to downtown, that's what people are looking for, and they get so much more out here as far as convenience factor. So it hits all the bases people are looking for.
What's your mix on kids and pets and stuff?
Probably 1 out of 3 people has a pet. Kids, maybe 1 out of 8. Yeah.
Okay.
City Administrator.
A little good news, bad news here. The good news is the pile's going, the soil pile. The bad news is the pile's going. It's going to be a mess a little bit. I left a message with Rick and his folks at the trailer today. Mike's got bids out for the RFP to remove the 20,000 yards of soil that are out there. We're going to have that on a special meeting for the council next Tuesday. Contractor's going to be looking to do that. It's going to be dusty around here. We're going to work with the contractor to try to keep that down. That's the good news. We'll be getting ready the next sites, but it's going to be a mess. We hope that we'll get it before the rains come, because if the rains do come here, we're going to have really problems. We've been working for the last 6 months, we the staff, with the DNR to get the permitting on that. That has not been a fun process, but we finally got that, and we've got bids coming in this Friday, and I think we'll have that removed probably starting in about 2 weeks.
Okay, anybody else? All right, keep up the good work. Great project.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Let me know if we can do anything else for you. All right, moving on. Item 7 is an informational regarding energy assistance for Forest Southside communities, presented by Diane Zettelmeyer, Milwaukee County Department of Health and Human Services, and this was a request from County Supervisor Steve Taylor.
Yes, and thank you. Mayor Scaffoldi, members of the council, good evening, and thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. My name is Diane Zettelmeyer, and I'm the program coordinator for the Milwaukee County Energy Assistance Program, and I have been for the past 4 years. So you're thinking energy assistance, and you're probably wondering exactly what that is and why I'm here. Well, energy assistance is a state and federally funded program that provides qualified Milwaukee County residents with a one-time annual payment during the heating season to make heating and electric bills more affordable. Eligibility is based on several factors, including the size of the home, the family size, and gross income. To give you an example, a family of 4 can have almost $50,000 annual income and qualify for this program. Someone like Reza, who's one of your Oak Creek residents, she's a single mother of 3 with an annual household income of $31,000. Her benefit this past year was $463, or 26% of her annual usage of electricity and gas. In Milwaukee County, that's right about the average benefit, $450 for the heating season, which can cover 2 to 3 months of the utility bill, sometimes even more for some people. And Reza's just one of over 56,000 households that we assisted this year alone. This was actually a record year for us. Milwaukee County processed over 27% of the applications in the entire state. That's up from 22% in previous years. We've taken over 66,000 applications for this season as of today, and we've provided over $31 million in benefits to Milwaukee County residents. These are some of the best numbers since I've been the director of this program and in the past 7 years, and I'm proud of what my staff's done. And this year we did things a little bit different. So if you know a little bit about energy assistance, I'm going to ask you to put it out of your head because it's changed. We offer one central phone number so people can make one call and get served at that call. We offer sites throughout the community so people can apply close to their home or where they work. This year we've had 4 sites. For the next season, we're planning on having 6, so that almost every Milwaukee County resident is within 5 miles of a site to apply. We offer appointments so that people can come in when it's convenient for them. Over 21,000 people made appointments this year, and 77% of those people kept the appointments, which is really phenomenal if you're familiar with the rate of no-shows for businesses and for medicals. 23% no-show is very incredible, and we're very proud of that. And we're also, people that came in were in and out in about 47.3 minutes, as opposed to a 4 or 5 hour wait in previous years. We offer phone applications, especially for our handicapped and elderly applicants, so they don't need to come in and wait in line. And we made customer service and the customer experience our #1 priority. And as I said, it led to an overwhelming success. However, from the census data, we estimate that there are as many as 150,000 households in Milwaukee County that may qualify for this program. So I feel that there's a lot of work that we need to do. And in our new season, which is about to begin October 1st, we want to focus on some of the underserved areas in Milwaukee County. And as you probably guessed, Oak Creek is one of them. In your community of over 14,000 households, only 709 of them applied in this past season. 7.4% of your population is considered low income, and probably another 8 to 12% would fall within our income guidelines, which is at just above 200% of the federal poverty level or 60% of the state median income, which means an additional 1,700 to 2,200 households could have had things a little bit easier this year with energy assistance. I can see some of you are probably thinking the math. At an average benefit of 450 times that 1,800 households, that's like $800,000 more in your community. So we have a few hurdles to get us there. Number one is to get information to people. A lot of people have not heard of our program, or they think that you need to be unemployed or disconnected from your utility services to get benefits. That's not true. This is for everyone, for my parents, for your parents, your neighbors, your kids. This is for anybody who has an energy burden. We need to get the right information out to the community about the eligibility criteria. We need to let them know this program is for everyone in our community. The other thing is the urban legend. If you have heard of it, you've heard about people waiting in the long line like it's, Punchka Day at National Bakery. That is totally gone. We're very proud of the fact that we've gone to this appointment-based system, and we want to let people know we've made it easier than ever for them to apply and get an appointment. Also for access. Right now, the nearest site is over 12 miles from you at UMOS over on Chase Avenue. Hopefully in this next season, we'll have a site on 27th Street, which will mean it will cut that distance in half for your residents. We're looking for other ways to promote our sites and our program within this community. We would like to work with you to inform your community, to develop ways to do outreach, and to provide access to this community. We'd like to make information available through your city, through your website, through any mailings you do, any articles we could do in your newsletters. We'd like to provide flyers, which I've started you out with some, that you can put at your city hall, your police department, your library, and maybe even have you guys sponsor an event where one of our staff members can come and take applications from your members who can't travel as far into other parts of Milwaukee County. There's one thing I've learned in my 24 years with Milwaukee County is that it takes partnership between communities and businesses and government to be truly successful in administering a program like this, which is why I wanted to be here to speak to you today. We'd like to make a real impact on Oak Creek. We'd like to see people from this area benefit from this program because I know there's so many who could. We've already developed many of the tools to help you and other communities on the south side of Milwaukee County start informing your residents, and we'd like to help customize them for Oak Creek so that you can deploy these things. So I thank you for letting me be here and for taking this matter under consideration.
Thank you for presenting that question. So once they've gone through the interview process or whatever that you call that, the 42-minute average, what happens after that? They're approved?
They would be approved, so it's a once-a-year process that you could apply. We would go through your information, your household information, your income information. They would let them know what documents are needed, or in most cases, they're approved and told what their benefit is on the spot.
And how is the benefit paid to the?
It goes directly to their utility company. In most cases in Milwaukee County, it's We Energies, so it'd be directly credited onto their account.
So there's no opportunity for someone else to get involved in that payment?
No.
Good. Okay. So you would say we're definitely underutilizing
Very
that
much so.
benefit for the county. Questions?
Just very quickly, what kind of documentation would a person need? W-2s, unemployment forms, anything of that nature?
Let me make sure. I brought Anna, who's our UMOS program director, but I'm going to give a shot at it, but she might add a few things. Person needs to provide proof of their identity, so a photo ID. They would need social security numbers and dates of birth for their household. They would need proof of income for their household. If they're a renter, they would need to let us know who their landlord is. They would also need to let us know who their utility company is. If it's We Energies and some other ones, we can look it up, but sometimes they need to bring in a utility bill. Did I miss any?
Anybody else? Alderman Tolman?
Where is that site on Chase, the present one?
The current site on Chase is 2701 South Chase, which is just, it's between Beecher and Oklahoma.
Got the one on 27 picked out yet?
We have a tentative location on 27th and Parnell. We're going through a few zoning things, but hopefully by the end of the week, this week, we'll have our lease signed.
Anybody else? Well, thank you for the presentation.
Can I leave these with someone?
Absolutely. Give them to the city clerk. We'll get those out. And we will also take the information and push it out, social media, website, however we can help. City Administrator?
We'll establish a contact person here and then continue Acorn, Current, and website. So we'll establish a contact person and we'll get the information.
Thank you both. All right, moving on to item 8 is a consideration of a motion to approve a strategic planning services agreement with the Novak Consulting Group in an amount not to exceed $22,500. I know we have a few members of the strategic plan group who will take a seat at the table for the interrogation. Who's giving the overview?
Mike.
Mike Kresick, Assistant Chief Kresick. Welcome.
Good evening, Mike Kresick, Fire Department. I'm joined tonight with Leslie Flynn, Wayne Evans, and Doug Seymour. June 21st, we came in front of the council for approval for an RFP to solicit bids on a strategic plan development process. That process was open shortly after that meeting and remained open until July 15th. As noted in your council packets, we did receive one proposal, and that was from the Novak Consulting Group out of Cincinnati, Ohio. The Novak Consulting Group specializes in strategic planning and administrative services for nonprofits and local government entities. Upon receipt of that bid, we did evaluate it comprehensively. The first thing we looked at, as noted in the RFP, was the statement of qualifications. There were 12 items listed that we were looking for bidders to achieve. It talked about the staff, the processes they used, the quality assurance program that they used, and how they would, many factors on how they would communicate aspects of the development and the final plan. The committee evaluated that and was comfortable that they met all 12 of those points. We further evaluated it based on the overall qualifications and expertise of the Novak Consulting Group. We looked at experience with similar strategic planning for cities our size, larger cities, smaller cities. We looked at the expertise of their staff. We looked at what their deliverables might entail, and their scheduling. We looked at how their schedule would mesh with what we had proposed for our schedule. And of course, we looked at the cost that was listed in that bid. Once again, the committee felt that they achieved many of the items that we were looking for, and in some cases exceeded those expectations. We did contact 4 references to get some feedback on their experience with the Novak Consulting Group, and we found very good remarks from each of those references. Many of the communities, there were 4 communities, most of them were larger than the city of Oak Creek. One in particular out of Michigan was experiencing many of the same growth issues that we were experiencing, and one out of Missouri, although I believe that one out of Missouri was slightly smaller, it once again was experiencing many of the same growth issues and development. To a T, our references stated that the Novak Consulting Group was very adept at communicating. They were very strong at maintaining project schedules. Their communications were very good. The communications of the process to parties within the community was very strong. One community in particular did stress that Julia Novak, the principal with this group, had a very good ability to elicit engagement, both with governments and with citizens. And we felt that was a very strong point, as this would be a community-driven strategic plan. Following the references, we did have a phone conversation with the Novak Consulting Group. Our discussion did substantiate much of what we already had obtained through the references and through their submittal. The Novak consultant, Julia Novak, did provide us with some examples of previous work that she had done and some general ideas on how those would translate to the city of Oak Creek. In your packet, we did provide some examples of deliverables. One area that the committee feels very strongly about is that at the end of this process, there are action plans, that this strategic plan has a goal that what comes out of this are items that can improve the city, the quality of life in our community, and that they are actionable. Julia did provide us with some examples that they've used in other communities. There are some variations. There seem to be a couple of methods that they use. Those were included in your packet for review. Once again, the committee felt comfortable that her ability to provide examples and deliverables, and she did recognize the importance that this committee has placed on that. Following this comprehensive review, the committee comes to you tonight to gain your approval to enter into an agreement with Novak Consulting for the development of a community-driven strategic plan.
I think I asked this when the committees or commissions recommend. Any dissenting opinions or concerns?
Absolutely. The committee was very open discussing the submittal. It was a very good discussion. We did evaluate the submittal in greater detail. We did contact references to clear up any points of contention or concern, and we did have the phone conversation. Following those elements, the committee does agree that this would be an adequate consultant to drive us through the process.
Do you think one of the biggest misconceptions about these processes when cities do them, it is driven by staff? And I think you clearly spelled out that this is a community-driven project. I think that's the thing that I like about it.
Absolutely.
And has she demonstrated that? Has her group demonstrated that in the other cities that you looked at?
Yes, we feel comfortable that she has the experience in utilizing community-driven strategic plans. Leslie, would you like to kind of talk about some of the ideas she's had for eliciting community engagement?
In our phone conversation with Julia, we had specifically asked her about how to kind of increase the community engagement in maybe an area that it's, we don't get a lot of engagement. So she had some really good ideas that she said we might use. It'll depend on the process that we established. But one of the ideas that we really liked was instead of having a community meeting, there would be something called like a meeting in a box where we would have the information that's needed, and maybe a book club could come and check out this information and take it for discussion, and there would be a feedback mechanism in place that we would get their input. So sort of that meeting would be on their own terms, but we would still get the input. She had talked about ways to, like, perhaps giving the elected officials a stack of golden tickets, and that you would be able to hand them out to people. Here we're having this this meeting. We'd like you to come, so you guys can have your hand in getting those people engaged, and they feel like they've gotten chosen with this special ticket. They've talked about something called a word cafe, which was a fast-paced. You sit down, you're given a topic, and it's kind of a rapid fire. So she had a bunch of really different types of engagements, not just everybody come here and sit down and talk. So some pretty unique opportunities, I think, to get the word.
Did she talk about in her proposal the length of time that she would be gathering information?
We did establish timelines for the completion of the strategic plan. She did she did recognize those timelines and did submit a proposal based on those timelines. The process for the information gathering occurs early on. There are some preliminary meetings with some key stakeholders and the community. Then there's a process of gathering information and processing that information. That happens early in the process. We would imagine within the first half, 45 days of the projected timeline. The advantage that is present in this particular case is that she has a committee with the city, our committee with the city of Oak Creek. We have begun the process to gather that information, and we will be there to assist in gathering any additional information and supporting them in presenting it.
Right, Mike's absolutely correct. I mean, the initial process of gathering this library of reference material for the possible consultant has been underway for quite some time now. So there was probably a lot, maybe too much information that's out there. But we thought that was something that we could do that would add value towards what was a pretty lean number as far as the budget for this. So I think the entire committee feels that, given some of the things that we can add in terms of the value and some of the initial steps of providing that information, that we're getting really good value from the services and from the budget that the council has designated for this activity.
Okay. Alderman Gale?
Just for the audience, the council packet includes a time graph with a projected start in early September with a 13-week project timeline ending in late November. So just to give everyone a feel for how long it would take.
Other questions or comments? City Administrator?
Very good. So 90-day process, first meeting that the council or the consultant has, and I think there's 4 public meetings that they had identified. First meeting is going to be with the council, so it's going to kick it off with that. There's some really good ideas of how to involve the city family and do this active engagement. We've actually talked about possibly food trucks and going out as well to parks and things like that and trying to engage people and do it on their terms. As Leslie said, we really thought this idea, this meeting in a box where people could do it to the homeowners association, the library book club on their own terms, we thought was really an interesting idea and get some feedback. So pretty excited about it. But I want to thank these 4 committee members, Mike and then Sig Tomkowski, who had a conflict today, have led that. They have engaged in that for some. They've done this strategic planning for others. It's the first time. So Wayne, thank you. That's been interesting to get his feedback and input on that. And I think it's a way to grow our employees as well. So as Doug said, lots of information already out there. All the past strategic plans are in a shared file. We have all of our comp plans for fire department, police department. So all the basic data is there. It's going to be interesting to put it together and make soup out of it. But I think it will be a good process. We want to make sure that the community is engaged. We have information in the Acorn. I think it's in our current. It's on our website. There'll be social media contacts out there. We've actually been sending that out to the 4,000 people who are on our contacts. So we're hopeful we're going to really get the community engaged in this. As the council knows, your decisions are a lot better and easier to make when you've really got the community input there. It's really important in terms of some of the big decisions we're making and are going to be continuing to make in the community. So
Wayne, as a young member of the committee, what was your takeaway from the process so far?
As far as it goes. My takeaway on the process so far, I don't know. I guess being new to this whole thing, it's pretty eye-opening. First off, I'm very surprised at how much I overthought this whole thing. I don't know. I just expected it to be much more complicated and difficult, but it's kind of easy.
You think it's a good process?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I was born and raised here, and I work here, so I really do look forward to seeing what this brings the city down the line, because I was told that this whole thing, this whole project and everything was a strategic plan at one point too. So, and this is a pretty big operation going on, so I'm excited to see what this brings.
Good. Thanks for helping out. Mr. Degner, you had a question or a comment?
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. As I understand, this is a cycle. Is it who sets up this cycle? Because there's a complete uproar in the city and 20 years ago when this started. Who sets up this cycle for strategic planning? Is this just a public planning administrative gurus that set up this, or is this required by the Southeast Wisconsin Planning Commission?
Mr. Degner, I think you're confusing the strategic plan with the comprehensive plan. There's 2 separate documents. Certainly there's some overlap between the two, but this is not anything that's required under statute by the state. I mean, the city has a separate comprehensive plan, which is currently in the middle of updating as well. That's probably was a much more defined process. Now, that was probably 2002, I believe, So, I mean, we'll be going through that process as well, but this is not it. This is the strategic plan. This is much broader than a comprehensive plan, and really takes a look at, it'll feed into obviously the comprehensive plan and vice versa, but this is not anything that's required by the state. This is something that is a wonderful tool for communities to use to guide future decision making and to establish goals and upon which we can measure the actions that we're taking to make sure that we're taking steps towards meeting those goals.
I think the point was very well stated in that we do have a number of groups in this city that are already working and already requiring tax money to survive. In the past, we've heard that we can't improve Putes Road or put sidewalks in there to schools because we don't have the money. But yet, we have groups that are talking about safe route to schools. And then as soon as the city development department comes up with another tenant, then we change all of our, so does this address our zoning and situations that seem so flexible? Because spot zoning used to be a bad word, but now it seems that happens all the time. We can't. In fact, I myself think this is just a waste of money, because just take a look at that packet. What did they do? They had the city of Gurnee. They got a bus stop shelter. Oh, nobody in the city of Gurnee could figure this out without spending big bucks. And I know that you and the council and the administrators know what our city needs.
Period. Want to answer that?
I do want to make a comment, a broad-based comment in regards to that. The city is getting back into the strategic planning process. A strategic plan is a important business tool, if not necessary. It's valuable to any organization. It's valuable to nonprofits. It's valuable to government agencies. To say at this point what that strategic plan would include would be presumptive on our part, because it is a community-driven strategic plan, and we're going into it with an open mind. This is a valuable tool that at the end of the process will result in actionable items that are formulated by the community, by the key stakeholders in the city. So it's early to say what it'll include. That's why we're doing the process, to see what the community, where they want to drive this process. There is value in the strategic plan. It's been a while since we've done one. We're getting back into the strategic planning process. We hope to grow this over 3 to 5 year cycles, so that our first time out may be somewhat basic and introductory, but certainly over time, staying in this valuable process, it'll grow into a living document that directs the city.
You have a form?
Rosemary Anderson, 3920 East Ryan Road. You said that there were going to be about 4,000 contacts. Is that going to be a random selection of contacts?
The process for the contacts has not been fully decided yet.
Is this going to replace a survey?
Not that we can anticipate. The survey is a tool that feeds into the strategic plan. It's something that the strategic planning process would require to gather information and make sound decisions.
Does anyone remember how much we paid for cobalt?
What was the number, Jerry?
About 12,000.
12,000.
So that's about $10,000 cheaper. And And then did we have to create some type of a strategic plan off the data that was generated from Cobalt's survey?
Rosemary, direct your questions to the chair, and then I'll farm them out to whoever.
Okay.
We're looking for commentary, not questions.
Yeah, and really, this is yes or no. Do you like the idea? I assume you're saying no.
Well, I want to know, to me, it looks like you're doing a survey.
Well, that's not what we're doing.
And if we can do a survey for $10,000 less, I'd rather go that way. When was the last strategic plan done?
1989, so.
1989, so
27
significant
So
amount of
it
time.
didn't go
since-
with the Cobalt. No, I object to it. I don't think that we need this.
Thanks for your opinion. I don't have any other questions from the audience. Anybody from the council?
Sorry.
Alderman Gale?
Yeah, I just want to chime in, and Mike and Doug and the group that is obviously facilitating this whole process. I mean, this has been a charge by the Common Council, the mayor, and the administration staff here to move forward on this whole planning process. And we've had an incredible amount of activity in the city here in the past 5-6 years. And, you know, we take a view from 30,000 feet and you wonder, you know, to make sure that you have a follow-up plan to the activity that's occurred here. I mean, we're seeing things come to fruition now that we're in the planning stages for years. Now we actually need to make sure we have a second act to follow up on that whole plan, so this momentum is maintained, what we're the goodwill we have with the business community is maintained, the goodwill we're developing with our citizenry is maintained. So I think this is an incredibly valuable process that we go through and actually just think about what in fact we want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and you do that continually over time. I'm somewhat surprised that we only had one response, Doug and Mike, but I talked to SIG over the weekend. But, you know, going through what the Novak Group, Novak Consulting Group did supply, I was fairly impressed with her process, very extensive. Whoever is going to be part of this group is going to be working for it. It's an intensive process. It's not a chalkboard and whiteboard kind of half an hour in a room somewhere. This is going to be heavy lifting, and it's going to be useful, I think, long term for the city to make sure the major stakeholders and the citizens of the city have a stake and say in what the plan is moving forward. And I think in providing the action plans that we can make sure we judge our actions and spend our money on are going to be incredibly valuable as the city moves forward. So I think having this plan and having this process is very useful.
And I'm not directing this at anyone that has spoken tonight, but one of the things that people like to say when they're agitated or don't like the things that are going on is that we don't listen to our residents. So two of the ways we listen to our residents is to do community surveys every 4 or 5 years, because that's a really direct, accurate sample. But you have to take some of that information and gather it in a more deeper, richer format, and this allows us to do that, and then to put a plan together based on what they're telling us, not what we're saying, but what they're telling us. So that's why we do it. It makes perfect sense to me. We haven't done it in 20 years, roughly, or whatever it was. Now is the time to do it. We have lots going on in the city. There's lots of changes, lots of moving parts. There's no better time to figure out where we want to go as a community, especially with a lot of new people coming here. They have good ideas. I always tell people, I don't care if you lived here 1 week or 5 decades. Your opinion means the same thing to me. You are a resident with full rights and responsibilities to lead the city in the right direction. So this is a perfect way to capture those ideas, and that's why we do them. Mr. Verhalen.
Just one comment. Whether it be comprehensive plan, strategic plan, whatever, I've been involved in a lot of different committees through the years in the city, as well as being an elected official a couple different times. But I guess your statement, Mayor, that it's been 20 years since we did a strategic plan, and I would hope that we don't go another 20 years before we do another one. And, you know, as well with some of the things in the comprehensive plan, we do plans, and a lot of times the plans are finished and they're put on a shelf and forgotten about. And, you know, the direction that was anticipated to go with a lot of this stuff, a lot of times it doesn't happen because the plans are shelved or whatever, for whatever reason. So I'm in favor of doing this, but I'd like to see better follow-up in the future. Maybe, you know, if we get a yearly update to see how we're progressing with things that are in the strategic plan. So when we get to a 5-year thing, everyone can say, look, we've accomplished this over the last 4 years with our reviews. And now it's time to, you know, strategically plan for the next 5 years and really keep after it. So we don't end up with a, you know, sitting here in another 10 or 15 years saying, well, we did a comprehensive plan or a strategic plan 20 years ago. We should maybe look at it again. And I think it would be a really good idea to have a yearly update to see where we stand if we do complete this.
Mark, sorry.
Alderman Gale.
Just like we had a budget and plan for this particular, you know, the Cobalt survey and this money for this particular strategic planning process, I think, you know, budget time or sometime around there is where Common Council, you know, gives the charge to the staff here to go over and do a, you know, annual review for us and provide a report that, you know,
I
itemizes where we are.
understand that, but like I said, you know, it seems to me like, and like I said,
I think
as I mentioned, you know, a lot of this stuff gets shelved and.
Yeah, you got to make it formal, otherwise
Yep.
it will get shelved.
Yeah, your point was a good one. Feedback and metric-based results is important, but it's also a two-way street. Council members can direct staff to come forward at these meetings. We have 2 every month, except for July, and get a full report on whatever you want them to talk about. So it's a dual responsibility. City Administrator.
Alderman Verhaelen's comments are right on. That's a lot of discussion, particularly for SIG, who isn't here. He's pushed that point. This has to be a living document. There has to be an ongoing report. Somebody has to be, you know, a gatekeeper, making sure that we're following and completing the reports. And I would indicate that generally the city's history is not having the plans of REITs and sitting on the shelf. We're getting things done, I think, very much so at Drexel Town Square here at the lakefront. The plans that the community had are very much being implemented. That's been our pattern since I've been here, and I suspect that that's going to continue. The committee is very much agreeing with that. Annual reports, making sure there's actionable items, keeping track of it, really important. You don't go through this process and not do that. The community starts to develop, I think, a real a sense of pride and a real sense of their voice counts when you implement the survey results, which we did in the 2011 Cobalt survey, which we're going to be doing with the one we have here in the strategic plan. So comments are right on, and I think the council does have a good history of listening to the residents, and I think it's really important to listen closely and have that active outreach as opposed to having the public meeting and see who come. We've got to go on their turf, actively seek them out, whether it's the golden passes you pass out or, you know, the food trucks in the parks that we might have to seek their input.
Anybody else? Alderman Bekavich.
Just real quickly, I don't want to be redundant, but I do agree with a lot of the points from Alderman Verhaelen, Alderman Gell to the mayor. I do think this is a good idea. Again, you may look at the price tag and think it's rather pricey, but to go off the city planner statements, a lot of the pre-work's been done, and if you look at the amount of work they're going to do and the amount of time they plan to do it, it's a vast amount of work gathering that data. So, I mean, it's really our advantage that the survey's been done and things of that nature. I mean, we're actually saving money in this. And again, not to sound redundant, but we do need that plan. We need to be proactive and not reactive to what's going on within the community, and this really helps set that bar for us. Mr. Dagner gave us all kind of a nice little compliment here. He said that the 6 of us or 7 of us with the mayor have a good vision for us, and he trusts us, and I appreciate that. But again, the more eyes we have on it, the better job we can do with it. So although I appreciate your support, maybe not every citizen feels that we have the best eyes on everything too. So I do think this is important, but to Alderman Verhaelen's plan, if we're going to set these goals, these smart, attainable goals, and they got to have timetables to it, we have to stick to it. And I applaud the committees and the volunteers that step up and actually take part in this, whether it's a young person like Wayne here or paid staff or a person like SIG, because that's what's really driving our community forward and has really helped us to get where we are today. So
Yeah, I echo that. We have some great committees and commissions in the city who do a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of great work. So thanks to you and thanks to all of them. Anybody else? Otherwise, I need a motion.
Gail move to approve a strategic planning services agreement with the Novak Consulting Group in the amount not to exceed $22,500.
Kuzikowski will second.
Guzekowski seconds, roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tolman.
Item 9 is a consideration of motion to concur with the mayor's appointment as follows. Celebrations Commission, 3-year term expiring April of 2019. KCE Brown, 8480 South Howell Avenue. Any questions? Otherwise, motion.
Gail, move to concur with the mayor's appointment to the Celebrations Committee as listed.
Guzekowski will second.
Guzekowski seconds, roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tolman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
And item 10 is a consideration of a motion to approve the vendor summary report in the amount of $908,530.63. City administrator will handle the report.
I'm taking my cue from Bridget, who always points out one or two items. I've got a few items to point out to you. Item number 5, I think there's a misrepresentation there. It's phase 1. That's the Tomasini bill for $260,000. We have not issued the contract for phase 2 yet, so that should be phase 1. So if you could note that. And then number 9, want to point out that 6 pages worth of expenditures in the list of bills. Notably, our employees have done a very good job of putting things on a purchasing card. We get a percentage of those payments back at the end of the year. I think last year was about $12,000, so this is one of our revenue-raising ideas. So it's a whole list of bills, but we do that so that we can get a percentage of that money back at the end of the year.
Questions? Motion.
Gail moves to approve the vendor summary report in the amount of $908,530.63.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tolman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Under police, item 11 is a consideration of motion to approve the proposed annual agreement for school resource officer services for the 2016-17 school year. Acting Chief Anderson is here to answer any questions. My question would be, we have a new officers, correct? Not new officers, but new in this role. And who are those? Who are they?
Kelly Rommel is back. This will be her second year, and Tim Zwicky will be taking over at the high school this year.
Do you see any changes? Any changes with the? No. Project, no.
I don't see any changes. Actually, they're looking to start new programs. Kelly started a program in the middle school for getting kids involved, like a mini academy. One of our goals this year is to work with guidance to identify people that are interested in either dispatch or law enforcement and start a similar program at that high school level. See if we can identify Oak Creek students that want to go into this profession.
Have you had the opportunity to speak with the new superintendent in your role, since assuming your role on this issue?
Not at this time.
Okay. Then I would suggest after the approval that we have that meeting, just to make sure that the targets and goals and objectives are all the same. Questions?
Steve, just one.
Alderman
question.
Gale?
Sorry. Can you tell me exactly, how are these two offices allocated to, is it fixed or do they float between the 3 buildings?
The high school, there's always an officer that's there during the school, every day of the school year. Then the middle school SRO floats between east and west. And then on Fridays, because that seems to be a busier day at the high school, they spend half a day, I believe, at the high school on Fridays as well. So, and then when she has a chance, she will stop in at the elementary schools for programming at that locations, but that is not a permanent assignment.
Is the high school still funding their, I don't even know what they call their roving hallway monitor?
I'm not aware if they have anybody in that position at this time.
It was a 1-year test, right? Anybody else? Motion.
Kirkowski will make a motion to approve the proposed annual agreement for school resource officer services for the 2016-2017 school year.
Bekavich will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tolman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Item 12 is a hold based on some last-minute changes from the state, correct? Thank you, Ann. So that one will be brought back. Moving on to engineering. Item 13 is a consideration of motion to award the Lake Vista Community Park Playground and Bluff Trails contract to the lowest responsible bidder, Edgerton Contractors, at an estimated cost of $4,068,092.28. Project numbers 14036 and 14037. City Engineer Mike Sims is here to answer questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Council will recall back in February of this year, we received bids on the project, and for a variety of reasons, we rejected the bids at that time. Some of the reasons included budgetary shortfall, some uncertainty as to the cost of some of the other projects that we're undertaking on the lakefront. Shortly thereafter, we got a little clarity on that with the bids that were open for the Fifth Avenue relocation project. That's the road project under construction now. And identification of a potential source for additional funding. So with that, we requested to go out to bid with some redesign and restructuring of the bid documents. And we did receive that approval from the council in April. So then through the spring and early summer, worked with our consultant, JJR, Smith Group JJR, advertised a revamped bid package. And so basically this is almost a two-part, this item and the next item is the architectural structures and the parks. This one being the park work. This includes the earthwork, the landscaping, the playgrounds, parking areas, scenic bluff, overlook, bluff trail, stone walls, outdoor lighting, utilities. It's going to bring 8,500 linear feet of additional new trails constructed throughout the park and provide 122 additional parking spaces. So this particular item does not include the architectural structures. But so we have the bids here listed. We were happy that we received 7 bids. Edgerton Contractors is the apparent low bidder at just under $4 million. So what you'll see is the second lowest bidder was about $850,000 up from there. After that, they got the remaining 5 bidders were relatively competitive. They were 5.9% within each other in the mid 5.5 million. So basically, we evaluated the bids. We talked to the low bidder, Edgerton. They assured us that they have not missed anything in their bid. They are eager to get going on the project. So basically, this is the request that we award this work and move forward.
Before I go to the city administrator, it's interesting to note that Edgerton was just picked as one of the fastest growing companies in Milwaukee. I think he put it on our social media. So great company, local, do great work. City administrator.
I want to provide a little bit of a big picture perspective on this project. It's part of a lot of work we're doing down at the lakefront, and I just want to give the council and the community an overview that the attachments that we had as part of this project shows revenue sources for a series of 4 different projects that we've had of $16.7 million. We issued $10 million in bonds. We've had cash on hand of $1 million that the council assigned to this project probably in 2012. We've had $3.9 million in grants, and I listed 8 different grants we've had associated with our lakefront projects. And then we're also looking at creating a donor-donee situation on our TID District 6 and what we think will be District 13 of $1.8 million. So that's a total project funding sources of $16.7 million. On page 2 of those materials, we identified what the council had previously approved as budgets for the various lakefront, Lake Vista projects. Roads were originally $7 million. And that was both Lake Vista Drive and the extension of Fifth Avenue. We had $800,000 in contingency there. We applied that contingency to the roadway projects. So $7.8 million budget that the council approved. We have contracts awarded on all of that. We have the Lake Vista Drive contracts done. We're estimating a little bit over $7.9 million on those projects. Should be opening up the road in October of this year. The North Bluff area, $1.3 million budget, just a little bit under $1.2 million. And you'll see in the detail, we actually have the movement to the soil pile that I referenced earlier tonight. That's $200,000. We've got another $100,000 in some planning efforts that's part of that project. And we had identified the terrace and the park initially separate. We had $3 million for the terrace and $2.5 million for the park, $5.5 million, $7 million for that whole project. So we've seen price escalation, and somewhat on the contracts. We've been out twice, so that's the price. We're at where we're at. The construction environment has changed. Page 3 gives the detail of the actual cost on the various projects. So the Lake Vista Drive project is complete. So that's $2.7 million. So that's a complete project. The North Bluff project is complete except for items E and F. There's $300,000 there again for the soil that I referenced. Fifth Avenue, that's a state-led contract. So those are bid prices. So that's pretty close. And then tonight you've got the terrace in the park project that'll total a little bit over $7 million. So that gives you kind of a big perspective. That's a complex project. Lots of staff members have been working on that for lots of years, to originally get the property into the city's hands, create the planning process. I know that Alderman Guzikowski was part of the planning group along with some citizens and members of our community development group on that. And we're at the point now where we get to start doing the fun things, start actually building it. So.
And direct observation, I was out there this afternoon for a different issue, and there's lots of people biking on those paths and roadways that are already in. Do have a concern for Ted. Do we own the fence that borders the whatever street it is that comes out of there?
Yes.
Okay, so when you're exiting the drive onto Fifth, taking a right turn, the fence is ivy covered, and the people that are leaving cannot see what's coming. And I'm afraid that someone's going to pull out either a biker, motorcyclist, car, and get nailed. So if we could get that ivy cleaned off that fence, or just make it more visible, you cannot see through that.
It was a vision triangle.
Yeah, so
we'll look at it.
Yeah,
We'll get
that was my only concern. People are using it already. They'll,
every day you go down there, it's amazing to me how many people who are at that site just driving through, and it is appropriately named Lake Vista, great views to the lake. People clearly recognize that it's going to be, I think, a real community asset when we get this put in.
Council, Alderman Tolman.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused here, but let's start with the shortfall, 1.8. What is that exactly due to the donor TID 6, and how does that play out over the years?
Right. If you'll remember, we came to council when we initially rejected the bids and looked for additional dollars. But what we've got is we've got cash currently of $1.8 million in TID 6. TID 6 is where Crothel is off of 13th Street, so that's that project on the west side of 13th Street. It's got a cash balance of over $1.8 million, and it's generating annual increments of $450,000. So our recommendation is to use that as a donor TIF to the new TIF we would be creating at the lakefront. Okay.
Total 1.8?
Yep, the 1.8 plus the annual increments until it retires. So we're going to continue to be generating about $500,000 a year in revenue that we're going to be able to do in different projects. So the way this actually is going to work, we're going to take the fund balance that we have in TIF 6. We've got to go through the joint review board, and it's coming to the council. So we've got to go through the process. And then we would refund our due diligence costs that we had for the purchase of the property. We've got about $1.8, $1.9 million in the environmental engineering and the legal work to get all of the series of properties at the lakefront. So we're going to be able to reimburse ourselves. We'll reimburse ourselves into Fund 40, which is our capital improvements fund. It gets fairly complicated, but this is what we're doing. And then we can then use those dollars to this project, so they can then be applied to the projects we're talking about
At
tonight.
$500,000 per year.
Oh, in addition to the 1.8 million that we've got. So we have other projects when we create a TIF plan, a project plan, we're going to have an income that's already going to be coming in addition. And I think it's 2023, so I think we've got $2.5 million of additional money that's going to come in. So if we have projects that we want to do that we haven't finished, there's going to be a revenue source for that. And as the council's aware, we've got 3 sites for private development, plus the Berkey site. Okay, so those will likely all be, and this is a long answer, but those will all likely be in the TIF district. And once we get the private investment there, and remember, niche hotel, lakefront restaurant, we need some fish restaurant, seafood restaurant, right? We have a corporate center, and we're actually proposing this site to a company, an international company as a corporate center, 50,000 square feet. Some of you know which one that is. And then we've got an apartment multifamily unit on our 3rd parcel. So if those projects develop, my estimates are about $100 million in additional value that's going to generate another $2.2 million at build out, in terms of that district. So we have other projects and will include other projects both on that site and likely within, and we see a really good partnership with the county, likely in Bender Park as well. There's some needs there, bike path that would, for instance, go down to Oakview. They've got a road that's in bad shape that they're having a tough time with. So we're not done likely with the improvements that we can take and make in that area over the years.
So if and when we develop TID 13, the increment from further development there we could retire 6, and that would it would self-fund the improvements?
If it would self-fund, we could retire 6 immediately, yes.
All right, that was my question.
So if we start generating we could do that anyway, but it would seem that if we have projects we really want to do, we have a proven revenue stream already in place. And obviously, there's been a lot of discussion to try to retire the districts as soon as we can. And if we had that kind of development that would replace that, I suspect that's what the council would do.
Thanks, I get it now.
Okay. Alderman Kirkowski.
Jerry, when I add this item and the next item together, it comes out to $5.8+ million. But the 2 items, it says it's 5.5 million is approved. So are you saying that the donor money from the donor TIF is going to take care of that shortfall?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then in the interim here, if the 2 items were to be approved, there would be a $300,000 negative balance. Then we have the paperwork that you're going to have to do to try and get that donor TIF up and running, whatever approved. Are we going to be able to cover that shortfall? And what happens if for some reason the powers that be say, no, you're not going to be able to move that money or to use it for donor TIF, and then we're stuck with that bill?
Answers for all of those. So we've already asked you in concept if you agreed with the donor donee when we, and you've already agreed to that. So in concept you've done that. That doesn't mean that has to be your final vote, but that's where you are. We aren't going to get our final bills for this project probably until January of 2018, February 2018. Project will end in October, November of next year, and the bill out for that project isn't going to finalize till 2018. So cash flow issue, it's not a problem.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Gale.
Jerry, I was looking, the lakefront structures, they proved to be reasonably inflexible in terms of how much they were going to cost to produce. But given the concept of the donor TID and having our taxing partners, co-invest in this project and those structures along the way, I want to make sure we're not cutting ourselves a little short in terms of quality and accoutrements if we don't have to necessarily.
That'll be on the next item, and I think that our staff is making recommendations that the basic design and kind of the cool factor that we have there, as opposed to your typical, half log park building, it's not that. It's more the design that we have here at Drexel Town Square. The recommendations that we have, we think are the right ones in terms of the value engineering, and Carrie can speak to that. She's got some pictures on that. So we're comfortable with where we are. No doubt we could build less expensive shelters than we have. There's no question of that. But what we're really trying to do is create placemaking in the community, and I think this does it. I think that the community will find this cool. Both people who are here, both people who are looking to be here. And I think it's really important to create these elements in different locations throughout the community and show what kind of trajectory the city's on. I think this is going to serve us very well.
And the one thing I noticed, even though I'm not perplexed at how it actually managed it, but the flame feature.
Those are ones we're taking out because we weren't sure how we were going to manage that either. We thought they were a cool idea, but the recommendation is to take those out.
I know it's a recommendation. I think they're kind of cool, but management of them strikes me as
We
kinda
started
tough.
to think about how you take those down the hill and how you actually do that, and we started to get a little concerned about. We thought it was a really cool idea, and the more we thought about it, somebody's going to be there with a dolly rolling either the propane tank down there or the wood, and we started to get a little concerned about.
Yeah,
that.
we are jumping the gun on this, but as somebody that grew up on Grand Park's border, anything that's not fixed usually finds its way to the lake or into someone else's property. So we got to really be careful about having anything that's easily removable, because we're not going to be able to be there 24 hours a day.
That's where our committee ended up.
$500,000 machine.
Yeah, yes, there's a good example. Okay, anything else? Hold on one second. Hold on. Alderman Guzikowski.
Jerry, real quick, with the road that's going to be opening, would we consider during construction, or is it going to be open? Because I have a concern with people moving through there during the construction phase. What are your thoughts? Or can I use maybe half this road, or I'm not sure what, but.
Mike's going to tackle that one.
Right, yeah, the road that's being constructed, we expect mid to late October will be open to traffic. Construction traffic will have to start using that road immediately. Work that we expect would be starting, would be happening before that. Unfortunately, it has to be routed up Chicago Road to Putes Road and into Fifth and then down.
And I don't know if we've talked internally whether we're going to be able to keep Lake Vista Drive open during construction or not. I think that's one of the things we're going to have to talk with the contractor about. Certainly the public likes that road and is on it quite a bit, and we've got to make sure there's not going to be a safety issue or conflict issue with the contractor. So we're going to be putting in, like Mike said, 8,500 linear feet of pathway adjacent to that. So, we're going to have to stage and manage all of that.
And if you haven't been down there, a lot of that area is naturalized already.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty
amazing.
Neat. Alderman Gale.
Jerry and Mike, as we get here close, I think as soon as we can get a very close final concept illustrations, we can get them out on our website and social media. It'd be very handy.
We can do that tomorrow. We've got them.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Degner.
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I've concerned for years about the lakefront stabilization because of the troubles that, and we see a repeat of them at Pleasant Prairie. I can't see in this great expenditures any lakefront stabilization concept. Is there some planned?
City Administrator.
The lakefront along what we would call the South Lake Vista area is already stabilized. It was required to be stabilized as part of the turnover of that property from DuPont and Epic to the city. So there is very much a plan that was created, that was implemented, and that was reviewed by the DNR, Department of Natural Resources, and it's considered stable. So a little bit further, we've got really a pretty gentle slope on what's called the Epic property. That's the far southern property on the Lake Vista area. That was cut pretty significantly probably 10 years ago. It's got wrapped at the bottom, so it's got a toe protection that's pretty significant. As you continue to go north on the DuPont property, that is not the same kind of stability. It's got a steeper slope to it, but quite frankly, that was the most cost-effective solution that the previous property owners had, and it's considered stable. We reviewed that with a Dr. Edel, I can't remember his first name, who is the expert in terms of, what was Tuncer Edel, who's the expert in this area on stability, and it passes the test.
So what about the area, not addressing anything north of American Avenue, or?
Actually, we have. So I was just keeping with where the projects are today, but last year, the city did, it's actually a remediation project, and it has some impacts of stabilizing the North Bluff area. I think it was about 1,200 feet. So if you were to go in the site, and you can't right now because it's off limits, you would find that significant stabilization has taken place of the slope. And actually, it's a process and a project that has been put in to mitigate the transference of any of the contaminants that are on that site, on the former Peter Cooper site, into the lake. So as part of that process to take the slope that was at a steep rate and was actually had the potential of bringing those contaminants into the lake, that got cut back significantly to reduce the possibility of those going into the lakefront, and that project is essentially done. That's the project that I was referencing that has a $1.3 million price tag.
Right, for the purposes of this item, the bluff stabilized.
Oh, it is included in this one then?
Yeah.
Because I don't see or haven't heard anything about this rock placement that was done on the DuPont property, and is that going to continue? But apparently you have a different approach then.
Yep. Well, shall Mayor answer?
Briefly.
Okay.
DuPont is done. It's a done deal.
DuPont's done. There's probably a longer-term toe stabilization process, many millions of dollars needed, not needed now, but long-term it will be needed.
Oh.
Long-term.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Rosemary Anderson.
Arden left off.
Okay.
We now own the front side of High Night.
Question is, do we now own the front side of High Night? Is that your question?
Yes.
Answer?
No, but there is a land exchange agreement that we are working on with High Night, where we would actually, the city would own the lakefront property, and we would exchange some property that the city acquired from the Peter Cooper property in exchange, so that the public would have access to the lakefront. But that is not complete as we are sitting here.
I thought you guys did a land swap for the front part last week or last meeting, no?
The council approved it. It's still working through.
You confine your questions or comments to this.
Well, it is, because you've got the North Bluff in here, and the North Bluff, this 1,300,000, is that just the trail?
Mike, is that just a trail?
No, that also takes into consideration the bluff, the upper reaches of the bluff that were pulled back and vegetated, stabilized last year.
Okay. I was on the ad hoc
Yes,
committee.
I'm aware of that. Yep.
And we just dissolved. Nothing ever came of it. We weren't
I think
kept
the
informed.
recommendations of that group were taken in. Actually, one of the advisors is sitting right there, and I think we used a lot of the ideas that came from that group.
Okay. Well, with Edgerton, are we now going to do the playground? Or are they just going to do the earth moving for that? Or is that the playground equipment?
The question is, are we doing the playground as part of Carrie?
The only thing that's changed is actually the contractor will be awarded the entire project. So it does include the playground. It does include everything that the committee talked about. We just split the shelters from the rest of the park.
Okay.
Anything else?
I did have more. Oh, questions on the 3 sites of the private development? Could you identify who those are? Would that be Peter Cooper, High Night?
The sites are within the former Epic and DuPont properties.
Oh. Can you give me an acreage on that?
Okay, let's.
I'll send that to you.
Yeah, these kind of questions, you can certainly track the city administrator down.
Well, this is a shock to come up here and find out that we got 3 private
There's no
sites.
shocks. This is a open process where.
I don't know anything about it. I never heard it, never saw anything on it.
We developed the lakefront so we can utilize the lakefront at some point, and these are parts and steps along the way. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, but you need to
Thank you.
privatizing it.
All right, other questions from the council? Or comments? Motion.
I'm going to make a motion to award Lake Vista Community Park Playground and Bluff Trails contract to the lowest responsive responsible bidder, Edgerton Contractors, at an estimated cost of $4,068,092.28. Project numbers 14036 and 14037.
Kuzikowski, I'll second.
Roll call.
Alderman Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tolman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski. Bekavich.
Aye.
And part 2 is item 14. Sure.
The private parcels are at the request of the public, so the public meetings that we went through, the public very much wanted private development parcels to be able to pay for the park costs, so that very much is what the park.
Don't speak from the audience, please.
So that's.
You're not coming up
that's
to
the
talk.
case.
You're not coming up to talk.
You're letting him talk on something you wouldn't let me talk on.
Please sit down. You can call the city administrator and ask him all your questions if you'd like.
Oh, really?
Yes. His phone number is public. All right, did you get everything else you wanted to say there?
Yes.
All right. So this is a motion, item 14 is a motion to award the Lake Vista Community Park architectural structure contract to Roche Construction and Engineering, Inc. for the lump sum cost of $1,784,000. And that is also project numbers 14036 and 14037 in the 4th District. City Engineer.
Thanks, Mayor. This again is part 2 of the second project related to the overall park development, and this is referred to as the architectural structures. It includes the Upland Pavilion as the largest structure, 3 sail structure type picnic shelters, 2 bluff shelters, and a beacon overlook structure. We had just one bidder on this project. I handed out a packet prior to the meeting. That's what you have in front of you here, and this is related to the discussion. But basically, I guess taking a step back, the architectural structure contract and the park project that we just talked about in the previous item, combine those two, we are just under $195,000 less than the low bidder from the February bid. So, I mean, we did gain there. Furthermore, when we went out for redesign, we asked that there be considerations and redesign on the architectural structures. And this was done in the format of these alternative design options. So the bidder had a base bid, had it broken down per structure, and then applied bid adjustments to some of these design options. So what we did as a staff was we reviewed the numbers, we reviewed the options, and we formulated an overall recommendation to the council. And that's what's reflected in the number, the $1,784,000 from their base bid of $1,899,700. So basically, this affected pavilion, and it affected the 2 bluff shelters. So the recommendation was basically to switch to a concrete form liner on the exterior, a simplified roof, a change to the interior ceiling material, and elimination of an outdoor linear burner fire pit. This was for the pavilion, and you'll see some of these options. These are what are highlighted on the handout that I gave you. Together, that represents $51,300 in potential savings if these changes are all accepted.
How much?
$51,300. We also looked at some design alternatives for the bluff shelters, and those are similar. The concrete form liner on the exterior, simplified roofs, and elimination of the wood-burning fireplaces in each of the 2 structures. And that would represent $64,400 in cost savings. So in addition to the $195,000 I mentioned earlier, this would be potentially another $115,000. So we could talk about some of these in a little more detail if you like.
Why don't we let the council kind of direct where we would go with this? And then Carrie, if you have something to add now, or you can chime in, whatever, because you spent more time on this than anybody.
I think the only thing that I'd like to clarify is the potential options that are shown in the materials and the ones that are projected on the screen right now are trying to maintain the same look, feel as the original buildings as were presented before. So where the changes would occur are meant to be minimal so that they don't affect the overall design, the aesthetic, the whole feel, the whole package for the park that we were going for initially. So we tried to maintain that as much as possible. The ones that we are recommending we feel had the least effect on the overall that we were going for.
Okay. Council, you've seen these options. I'll start down.
Just one.
I'll start down. Yeah, go 1, 2, 3.
All right.
Alderman Krukowski.
Unless I'm missing something, please forgive me, but what does RCA and VE stand for, please? I got a couple questions, but that's my first one.
RCA is Rinka Chung Architecture, VE is Value Engineering.
Okay, thank you. Figured it had something to do like that. I like the idea of reducing the costs. I've looked at some of these, some of the things like eliminating the fireplace and the fire pit, because I can only imagine what would be tossed into those things when they're not being rented out and used, which leads me to probably somebody else going to have that question regarding any potential vandalism or misuse of the facilities. What's the game plan with obviously down the road, but what are your thoughts so far with these?
Currently, Lake Vista Drive has cameras on it. Buildings will have cameras. We have those piped into the police department. So we think it's important. And once we actually start to activate the space with park space and hopefully some of the folks who are going to have businesses and residences down there, we think the vandalism will reduce over time. But we do have cameras and recordings out there even now.
I mean, I don't think we have a problem in our parks. I mean, it's just you're giving an opportunity to those people who
We've had a little bit of
take it.
vandalism. I mean, we've had some folks drive through the grass and things like that. Not so great, but we are anticipating that. We built that into the design.
And my last question is, even looking at these designs where items and highlighted were potentially the cost reductions, is there anything else that has not been taken into consideration but may show up? And I mentioned the water project where we, the day of the night of approval, we ended up with a third option that we didn't know about, and then the I can't think of the other thing that we recently had, but you know what I'm getting at. There's something in here that we're not looking at. Oh, the building around the communications tower. That's what I was thinking.
I guess I could tell you this. I did talk with the bidder That's Roche Construction and Engineering, and they are from Kenosha, a mid-size construction company. They've done a lot of work for the city of Kenosha and Racine and Lake County Forest Preserve on similar type structures in the state of Illinois. They also have worked with our water and sewer utility on some plant upgrades. I think it was 2011. So I talked with Mike Sullivan over there, and he had a lot of good things to say about this company. So he highly recommends them. They were very helpful. He felt they were not they were innovative on helping them work through some issues that came up on their project, and that they were fair on costs. And so to that end, we had some talks, and he thought there were some ways, even more so than the options that we're talking about tonight, that potentially they could help us to maybe reduce costs a bit on some aspects of the construction. So they're willing to do that. We're willing to listen and work with them. So I think that that's a big plus with this company. Thank you.
Alderman Berkevich.
Looking at them, I mean, you know, they're gorgeous looking renditions of buildings. I just kind of want to touch on the maintenance of it. We have tongue and groove cedar and outside cedar going on here, clear laminate. We're not going with something a little less maintenance on there over the long haul of it. So I'm kind of taking a look at that going forward, because that's just going to be an added cost to our street department or outside costs going forward. So if you guys could enlighten me on that. And then also, these are open air structures. I take it there'll be no heating and the lights won't be in. I mean, you're showing lights on the back page, but I don't know if that's for an enclosed one or, you know, what's the park hours? Is nobody going to use these things after dark?
Well, the open air structures, you're correct, they don't have electricity. The lights that are in the last couple of pages, those are for the Upland Pavilion. That's the one that is enclosed, okay? As far as the materials are concerned, they are all supposed to be treated, so it's like decking. The wood treatments on the exterior are all supposed to be external weatherproof materials.
That new wood you never paint, you never mess with. You know what I'm talking about?
Is it the yeah, I know it's not, because wood won't last as long as this new material they're putting out for decks.
Yeah, I don't have the exact material in front of me, but if you are referring to the cedar and cedar laminate, that's for the interior of the Upland Pavilion.
Oh, that's for the interior. Okay. So really outside, the outside stuff to the elements.
Concrete panels, a lot.
Okay.
Is the inside of that building secured unless it's rented?
Yes.
Answered on, yeah, I'm set.
Alderman Halen.
Just one thing, backing up to Alderman Kirkowski's statements on the vandalism end of it. I like to see the buildings, you know, maintain a good aesthetics, of course, but on the maintenance side and the vandalism side, wherever we can, I like to see materials that can be cleaned off if they get graffitied. And one other thing that I would like to bring up is, I know you've cut some of the windows out already in some of the buildings, but I mean, that's a high maintenance issue, especially down by the lake, because I mean, we're gonna have to have somebody down there cleaning glass all the time if we have a lot of glass, and as well, good chance for broken windows and stuff, and it only takes a second to throw a rock through a window. So, and if we can minimize the windows on them things and keep with architectural things on the outside, where it's easy to clean if they get graffiti. That's the only concerns I've got, I think, pretty much. Yep.
All right, Alderman Gill, do you have something else? Alderman Toman.
Thanks a lot.
I thought you already talked.
Yeah.
Alderman Toman.
Yeah, okay. I support the cost savings. I think it's a good idea. It doesn't seem like that huge of a compromise. Eliminating the fire pits is a good idea. Staff was on board with that as far as that. Okay, and is there, on the shelters, are those sloped roofs at all, or are those flat roofs on the shelters?
On the bluff shelters, I believe
They look like they're sloped.
think they're slightly sloped.
On the one, on page 3, it says it's a fully adhered roofing membrane.
Well, that's a rubber roof? Is that what?
That would suggest flat, right?
Is that a rubber roof?
Yeah,
membrane?
it's a rubber roof, and it's got,
Okay.
I think some of them have a slight pitch. There's some
All right.
flat elements and there's some
Okay,
pitched
I think
elements.
it's a good
but-
idea if we,
yeah.
I think that's something worth looking into, to pitch them slightly. Do you know, Mike, if they're?
Yeah, they've got a slight pitch to them. What the
Okay.
angle is, I don't have that in front of me, but
slight
they have a
is-
slight pitch.
anything's
yes.
better than, yeah,
Yes,
okay.
exactly, not flat.
Okay. That's about it, other than thanking staff for going through all this work. I mean, yeah, you sent the bids out once and you had to go through this again. I can see there's been a lot of input in this. So thanks for moving it forward too, because when we turned down the first set of bids, I was concerned that we wouldn't get anywhere this year. And it looks like we're going to move forward this year. So thank you again.
Alderman Gill.
Yeah, just on the smaller structures, I actually don't mind the steel slats instead of the whatever see-through material was originally proposed there. So, I'm a little confused in terms of Rinka Chung's board form concrete finish versus the formula concrete finish. Can you shed a little light on that, Mike or Carrie? What is that actually?
We'll probably tag team a little bit here. The original proposal had the board form concrete, and one of the options was the sandblast concrete. And staff looked at that and said we would prefer to have some kind of a textured finish, and therefore we are recommending the form liner concrete, which has the same kind of aesthetic as the board form, but it's stamped or it's formed a little bit differently than the board form, which still gives you the same kind of aesthetic, but it gives you the cost savings.
Okay. And I would echo Mark's concern about, I'm not sure what kind of material we're actually using for, on the main structure, the see-through components, but you're gonna have to make sure that's fairly
Yeah,
break-proof.
the glass that's being proposed is a tempered glass. It's supposed to be thicker. It's also supposed to be more tamper resistant. It's supposed to hold up a little
I
bit
imagine
better.
a lot more than tampering going on with some of that. I'll leave that to you guys.
Yeah. We've been told by the architectural firm that the garage doors are supposed to be much more reinforced because they are that kind of movable mechanism, and that the rest of the windows are also supposed to be treated.
I think for the rentable closed buildings, I think glass is appropriate. For some of those other bluff shelters.
There are no windows on the bluff shelters. It's just the Upland Pavilion that has glass.
Yeah, you don't want to lose all the glass because, I mean, that's kind of the cool part of it because it's not always, I mean, if you're out at the lake, you want to see the lake. Do you have something to say, Jerry?
Well, just to add on to this, one of the, I think, really good ideas that's come out of the council, and I think from the community lately, we're going to be looking at beer garden. So we're going to be looking at how these structures can be incorporated down there. I think there's been a lot of interest in that. So we're going to be having a committee. I think Alderman Bukevich and Toman are going to meet with some of our staff. And I've charged Pete and Carrie with a real enviable job of going out and checking these out at some other places. So we think this could be a new element that we're going to bring down here. And so we may bring a change order back down to maybe add some of those things to accommodate that. That's an idea that's really picked up a lot of interest. And,
Well, I mean, the point is,
yeah.
why would we hope to have the county award us a 2-week traveling beer garden when we could actually just do it ourselves and do it all summer or whatever time period we chose?
So it's likely we'll be back to the council once we figure that out, where that goes and how that incorporates into this, and maybe add that as a change order to this project. And pretty exciting, I think.
I already had that short discussion with Pete Wagner on that at your suggestion, and I'd like to bring Carrie into it, and Dan, if you're interested.
Dan's an expert on beer gardens, I believe. All right, last but not least.
It's exciting that we're finally here and close to almost having this come to fruition. You know, the group that has been working on this for the last couple of years now really put a lot of time and effort into it, so I really appreciate everyone's effort. I don't really, you know, when I'm looking at the smaller shelters, the bluff shelters, I don't really have much of an objection to the changes. Going back to our original concept and the conceptual feeling was that on that the big pavilion, the Upland Pavilion, we wanted open air. We wanted as much glass in there for the exact reason, Mr. Mayor, that you had mentioned, for if you're going to rent that out, it gives it really a whole different feel when you're in there. So I understand the security that everyone has been bringing up with the safety of the glass and getting broken. That was, topic of discussion numerous times, at our meetings, as well was the feed to the PD for, they'll have an eye in the sky, if you will. That being said, I would really prefer to see that Upland Pavilion going back to, reverting back to glass, but that's just my personal opinion on that.
Gary? Or
I
Mike?
just have one point of clarification. There was an option that was shown where the windows on the west side were removed. We did not move forward with that recommendation. Those windows are still in our recommendation.
That the one on the right?
The original option, yes.
On the left. Perfect. Bingo.
I'm guessing that if we're building a pavilion like this that's going to be rentable, if someone breaks something in and around the pavilion, we're going to have pretty good images of who that is.
And they're intended to be easily replaced pane by pane instead of having a full system that you might have damage to that you'd have to replace the whole thing.
Yeah, and we also can't say we'll never do anything just because we're worried just only about vandalism. Otherwise, we would never accomplish anything in the city. So we have to weigh the structural and engineering options with the aesthetics and the desirability of whatever you end up doing. So I get the Alderman's point. I'd rather see that Upland Pavilion be maintained in its original design, because I think that is a building that people are going to want to use for weddings or parties or whatever. So I would agree with Alderman Guzikowski on that.
Definite revenue source.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. Come on up. You asked me the question, I directed to the person.
Are we getting rid of that fire pit there, the circle?
Question is, are we getting rid of the fire pits? I believe we said we were.
That was a recommendation in consideration for cost and safety.
Cost and safety. I really like the fire pit at the Upper Pavilion, and I think that if it rents out, do you remember how much they said that it would rent for?
How much does it rent for, Carrie? Do you know? If that's set.
That wasn't set. That was something that was going to be programmed by the rec department.
Anybody have any idea? I think that Hammernick said like $800.
Well, I'm sure it's, look at comparables.
And the more we have it rented, the more safer it's going to be.
I agree with that.
Okay. And the cameras, you can forget about the cameras. They have cameras right now down at Bender. They never work. It's the first thing that they put out.
Well, that's county stuff. I'm pretty confident about our
And when we were talking, Rinka Chong?
Rinka Chung is the architect.
Oh, can you put back the other shelters, the smaller ones? So we're going to switch from the slats to the glass.
Not glass.
No, we are not recommending, it's actually a perforated metal panel that they suggested as an alternative. We are not recommending that. We're recommending the original design with the slats.
Oh, okay. Then what are we changing?
What are we changing?
The fireplaces will be eliminated from the bluff shelters. There's going to be a slight change from the board form concrete to another form of concrete. And I believe that, and then the membrane on the roof. Those were the only changes to the bluff shelters, but that did result in some savings. And then the changes to the Upland Pavilion, same kind of concrete material changes, slight change to the interior wood, the elimination of the outdoor fire pit. I think there was a slight roof change as well. And then I think there was a recommendation to also reduce we kept that in. There was a recommendation to reduce the trellis, but we decided to go against that.
And the bathrooms will be open.
Yes.
Thank you for your questions.
I think that if you would have saved on the 22,000, we could have laced this up a little bit better.
Your comment is noted. Anybody else? Motion.
I'm going to make a motion to award Lake Vista Community Park architectural structure contract to Roche Construction and Engineering, Inc. for the lump sum cost of $1,784,000. Project numbers 14036, 14037.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
All right, home stretch. Community development, we have two items. Item 15 is a consideration of resolution number 11729-081616, approving a certified survey map for the properties at 6304 and 6340 South Howell Avenue and 137, 147, and 209 East College Avenue in the First District. Doug Seymour is here to fill us in.
Thank you very much. This certified survey map is a document which will combine the 5 different parcels that currently exist at that corner into one property for the purposes of a proposed self-storage facility, which was recently approved, the zoning for which was recently approved by the Common Council. When combined, the property itself will be about 5.2 acres? No. So, I mean, essentially, it takes 5 different properties, and combines them into one in preparation for development of that parcel.
And what, as in a very challenging parcel, which is a use consistent with, that I think, with the airport location. Others disagree, but that's their right. Other questions or comments? Motion.
Kirkowski make a motion to approve resolution number 11729-081616, approving a certified survey map for the properties at 6304 and 6340 South Howell Avenue and 137, 147, and 209 East College Avenue.
Bekavich will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
All right, so on item 16 is a motion, consideration of a motion to hold resolution number 11730-081616, vacating and discontinuing a part of a public street in the city of Oak Creek, in parentheses, 70-foot wide public street in the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of section 10522 until after the required public hearing scheduled for October 4th, 2016. Is this procedural?
It is. It's typical of any street vacation. There's a prescribed procedure which involves the initial reading of the resolution and holding the action on that, and actually the presentation of that to the public hearing. So unless there are specific questions, I prefer maybe holding the any presentation to the public hearing.
All right, so we're following our own rules, correct? Yes? Quickly?
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania. I've been concerned for many years for safety, and especially our school children. And as I see this elimination of this street that would provide some type of access for the school buses, just imagine now, with 600 potential parking spaces, even if they have a first phase or two, just think the potential of the number of school children that will be queuing up at and running into the road of Drexel Avenue, because there are always monkey shines and going around, especially when you got groups of just dozens of children. Now, how can we provide safe routes to the public school if we're vacating a public street? It doesn't compare with anything. Safe routes to schools, as far as I'm concerned, this is of an important consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Any questions on Alderman Gale?
The developers in the audience, just want to make sure Tony concurs with our action. That's what you're looking for tonight, Tony?
He has nodded yes from the audience. Other questions? Motion.
Kirkowski will make a motion to hold resolution number 11730-081616, vacating and discontinuing a part of a public street in the city of Oak Creek, 70-foot wide public street in the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of section 10-5-22 until after the required public hearing scheduled for October 4th, 2016.
Bill second.
Bill seconds, roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
And licensing, I'll hand off to the license chair, Alderman Kirkowski.
License Committee did not meet prior to the meeting. Tentative recommendations are as follows. Item 17, Kirkowski makes a motion to grant an operator's license to the 7 individuals listed on the agenda. Favorable background reports received.
Verhaelen seconds.
I had a second by Verhaelen. Alderman Verhaelen, roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
18.
Kirkowski make a motion to grant a reserved Class B combination alcohol license to Jessica A. Escamilla, agent, Margarita City Cantina, Inc., DBA Margarita City Cantina, 8201 South Howell Avenue, with issuance subject to final departmental approvals. This is the former Tozino's location.
Every
seconds.
Thank you, Mark. Every time I have a meeting, I'm surprised by something, and this is something I didn't even notice. So that Tozino's is filled by a Mexican restaurant. Will be filled by a Mexican restaurant. Interesting timing.
Margarita place. Get a bottle of
Okay.
tequila.
Thanks for the second. Roll call.
The second pizza.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
And 19.
Kirkowski make a motion to grant a temporary Class B beer license to Kelly Stefanich, agent on behalf of St. Matthew Parish, 9303 South Chicago Road, for an adult field day fundraiser to be held on September 17, 2016.
Verhaelen seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Verhaelen.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Steve, just one thing
Yes.
before I make the motion. Going back to item 9, it was an appointment to the Celebrations Commission. I just want to bring it to everybody's attention. This young lady's 20 years old, and she volunteered on her own behalf to invest back in her city, and I think that's worth a little bit of mention because that's something you don't see every day. You see a lot of Eagle Scouts and people doing things for the city, but really am anxious to see this young lady take part in some city activities. I think it's worth mentioning.
Very cool. Thanks for mentioning that.
Bekavich will make a motion at 8:57 to adjourn.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call. Just
Alderman-
under the wire.
Alderman Tillman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Jerry, finance.
Thanks for
What
being
day?
here. We will see you next Tuesday.